I want to talk to my Christian friends today. See if these thoughts are going to speak to you or not. I don't know if you're feeling this way sometimes, or maybe even a lot. You feel exhausted. You feel exhausted in your faith most of the time, and living for God is very energy draining. If that is you, and you're straining under the weight of upholding the honor and glory of God, hear me out, because I know what that's like, because I've been there and I've done that. I observe people, I observe myself, and I study the psychological effects on the physical body. And I encounter a lot of tired and exhausted Christians. I hope I can put this into words, but recently I was observing a young person, and they were very tired in their demeanor and expression, and I know they are hardworking. They're a hardworking person, so there is physical exhaustion, but the exhaustion that I sensed, was more of a mental exhaustion. And this person was speaking about, in terms of whatever the Lord has for them or decides for them for that day, that's what they would just go with. And I'm feeling this tiredness comes from a subconscious soul that is disconnected from God and their identity. A soul that is separate from God, that sees itself separate from God. When you are separate from the source, and we see this in the world a lot, when countries are threatened of being cut off from the source of energy, that's a very exhausting way of being. Then when you are, for example, an energy-rich country, and you're not dependent on the energy of other countries, you're pretty stable. You don't have that fear of running out. And it works similar with our soul. When our soul is perceived as this tiny little human being that is dependent on Almighty God. And let's face it, in reality, we are not always receiving what we are asking of God. And never being certain of whether God is going to fill your request as requested is like ordering product from a vendor and they never send you what you ask for, and they substitute with a similar product or a different product, you wouldn't be very happy. And in a way, that is that same underlying energy is when we ask things of God and we don't get what we ask for. We have a supplier that just cannot meet our needs, right? And now, don't get into this debasing of, well, we don't know what we really need. God knows. That is nonsense. That's invalidating yourself, and it's unhealthy. And that, in worldly terms, is a concern of energy insecurity. The supply chain is not 100% guaranteed. So we live passively in receiving mode of whatever crumbs or small or big blessings are coming in. But psychologically, you're always in a energy of dependence, and there's always a slight worry of, what if God doesn't come through for me? And I want to address this unconscious and conscious feeling or awareness, non-awareness. I don't really know what it is at this point. It's not awareness, because we're not, if we knew our soul and the psyche that intimately, we would change. We would change what we believe. But there is always this lack, this potential lack. What if God is not coming through? Every time we ask something of God, we're not sure if we're going to get that. And that's a very exhausting way of living, of being, day by day. You have to train yourself to be satisfied with the table scraps that fall off the table of your master. And I used to have that mentality. Maybe I wasn't a very enlightened Christian, but I used to have that mentality, and I would always live in this fear of not getting what my soul desired, because maybe it wasn't God's will, because my will was insignificant, right? It's always about God's will. So you resign yourself to this beggarly poverty mindset, and that is so exhausting. It drains the soul. It drains the soul of life force. And this is because we are in the duality of God versus me, and God and me as separate points of life, separate points of entities. When I changed to singularity consciousness and realizing that I am the divine source, I am God, my consciousness is the consciousness of God that creates all things. I realized that I wasn't just the receiver of God's blessings, but I was the generator, the source of those blessings. And that, when I realized that consciously, it eliminated the feeling of insecurity, the threat to the supply chain, if you will, of not getting specifically what you ask for. Yes, we're thankful for what we get, but it's never what really, often not what we wanted, because we communicate to God, with God, from a place of undeservedness and poverty. So we get scraps. We get that which matches the poverty mindset. Anyway, so when I tapped into singularity consciousness and I became aware that I am the source of my blessings and not just the receiver, I am both. I'm the generator and the receiver of my blessings through my conscious intentions. It changed everything. It changed everything. The spark of my soul came back into me. And I don't live with fear. I'm not saying that I don't still get a concern sometimes of how my intention is going to be returned to me. I am still human, and I still have an ego. I still have a mind that can fall in consciousness to worry and duality. But more and more, I am finding myself in singularity, and it's always proven that through this singularity, the desires of my heart are coming true. So I no longer have to wonder if God is going to deliver, because I am the generator. I am the divine consciousness that generates my blessing. So, I don't know. I said a lot. I don't know if it makes sense. I hope so. This is the second retake. I might upload both of them so that both angles can be heard. There is also another strain for the soul. Again, it's in complete unawareness. But living under the unconscious energy that you're doing your darn best, and your logical mind knows it's never good enough for God. It never measures up for God, because we have this program of our works are as filthy rags. So even in that, in doing our best, we are exhausting ourselves because of this mentality that our best is never anything more than filthy rags. So it's not really an incentive to do our best. It's really, our soul is not incentivized with a reward. It's you're doing your best, and you know it's still not considered good enough in the eyes of God, but it is accepted. It's accepted by grace. That's another very soul-draining subconscious belief and energy. So we need to bring that to light and try and get rid of that as well.